At 11 o'clock in the morning of that November the 11th, firing ceased in what till then had been the greatest war in history, the war which all of us hoped and so many of us believed would end war.
9 o'clock in the morning, 11th November 1918, the bells start ringing, sirens start ringing, the armistice is being announced, people start flowing into the streets. It's instantaneous, it's spontaneous. I mean, this is a population that's been waiting 4 years for this to happen, and they're just coming out in the streets, and New Zealanders are not known for their joy and celebration, but this was a day to really celebrate.
Thick white mist enshrouded the battlefield when the last German shots were fired into the air. And when 11 o'clock came, silence fell. A strange, uncanny silence. It seemed incredible to stand there amid that silence after 4 years of war. The troops felt the solemnity of the moment, but there was no cheering, no excitement. The moment was accepted almost in a matter-of-fact way.
10 million men had died, and millions more had been wounded, many of them maimed for life.
There was, however, a tragic cloud on the rejoicings in New Zealand, the influenza epidemic, which by that time was about at its worst. In Auckland, where the epidemic started, the position was so bad that public demonstrations on Armistice Day were abandoned because the health department considered it dangerous for people to congregate.
Back here in New Zealand, we're in the midst of an influenza epidemic, a pandemic. It's worldwide, kills upwards 30 million. And in New Zealand, we think 18,000 New Zealanders killed in the war. Well, there was 8,000 killed from this influenza, including 2,000 Maori, a huge percentage of the population.
My darling Pat, the end of the war has at last arrived, my dearest heart. My thoughts are ever with you till our next meeting, never to part again. It would be quite beyond my power to express the awful times I have passed through the last few weeks. If the war had lasted another week, I would have become a physical and a mental wreck. The fact is, I was recently appointed to take charge of all the bridging construction and the delivery of bridges for all the regiments in the Army Corps section. All the original bridges had been demolished, and new ones had to be built in a few hours. To make a long story short, I managed to carry it through, and for now, I feel as if I could sleep for a month without stirring. Well, my own little darling, I must leave you for the present, although I could sit up for a week talking to you. With all my love, Harry.
Not every soldier found it easy when they returned home. And my mother's brother, whose name I bear, at the outbreak of war was a sailor on a coastal vessel called the Patina. And they lived in Waikawa Pa next to Picton in the South Island. And he enlisted as a young man, aged 20, I suppose. And in the space of 3.5 years, he served overseas. And he was wounded. He was fined for losing equipment. He was treated for syphilis. And he won the military medal. When he came home, he was told that, at least our family believes, he was told that he was no longer welcome in Taranaki, not to go back to Taranaki, which was the home area. Why? The fact is that the land wars were only 35 years before this time. And Parihaka, the great events of Parihaka in Taranaki in 1881 and a little bit further on with prisoners going down to Dunedin, had created a situation where basically many people in Taranaki, many Maori, felt that this war was not their war, it was war for somebody else. And in fact, there was conscription of Maori during the First World War. James Allen, the Minister of Defence, and he targeted first of all Maori in the Maniapoto Waikato area. Many of them refused to enlist, and they were taken to Narrow Neck here in Auckland where they were kept. So warfare is a complicated thing, and my uncle had to deal with the ramifications of that after the war.
Nearly all the New Zealanders who had died in the First World War were buried overseas. so there was no grave to which people could come. The very First World War Memorial was put up in Kaitaia on the initiative of the local Māori community, and it was initiated in January 1916, in other words only about 7 or 8 months after the landing of Gallipoli. It's an extraordinary memorial, and it's particularly remarkable that it should be done less than a year after Gallipoli itself. War memorials in New Zealand had a double function. On the one hand, they were designed to evoke a sense of pride, a sense of the long tradition within which people were fighting, but also they were surrogate tombs. They were places where people could go and visit. The Auckland War Memorial Museum was actually designed by 3 architects who were friends, all of whom had fought with the New Zealanders on the Western Front. So it was really designed, like many memorials in New Zealand, to sort of elevate the sense of sacrifice, to elevate the sense of New Zealand's place in world history.